edition of the Wonder Woman podcast.
I'm Brian,
I'm Dave.
and you can find us at wonderberry.com, but you can also find us going to the theater together with our children. And I'm scared, Dave. Will you hold my hand? We're going to see a scary movie.
I mean, how scary can it be? It's just based off of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Have you seen the game? It's all fucking jump scares, man.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be jump scare.
I'm wearing a diaper. Are you going to wear a diaper?
My kid told me the other day after we talked about this that they handle scary movies better than I do, and I laughed for 5 minutes straight.
I I I watched some like pretty intense scary movies, and I'm still nervous about watching this.
And then I had to remind her that I just wrote, directed, and filmed kind of a cerebral movie, so she can suck it.
I just
You
know
can
that the generation that we're raising's just they're fucked. Like they're
Well, I don't know because we also grew up in the world of like Goosebumps and shit too. So
Goosebumps doesn't have shit on this. I just watched the
no, that
Goosebumps movie
no, I'm
like
not talking about the movie.
literally
I'm
like
talking
2 or
about the
3 days
books.
ago. Yeah,
We had
yeah,
we
oh
had
yeah.
Goosebumps and X-Files.
Yeah, no, yeah, okay. But they're the shit that they watch is like I, I it's intense. And I'm
It
like,
it
what the
it
fuck? You're
can
10 years old.
that is
Ah!
very true. That is extraordinarily true. I
I'm
mean,
40 and this hurts my brain. How are you
could you
handling this?
could you imagine us dealing with Slender Man at 10?
In back rooms? Do you know about the back rooms?
Yeah, oh yeah.
He's tried to explain that to me, and I was just like, did
Yeah. Fuck that.
w- uh, no, but let me get back to you on this, okay? I'm gonna go to a counselor, and I'm gonna go talk about this, and good luck with your future. I don't know. Hopefully, we just nuke everything and you don't have to deal with this anymore. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry you
I'm
were
honestly
born.
though, I'm honestly looking forward to watching Five Nights at Freddy's.
I am
I
too.
have been a fan of the video game itself. I haven't played all the iterations. I played
There's like 8 of them or something, 6 or 8 of them. I don't know. There's a bunch. Dominic has a shit ton of them on his Switch.
I played a handful. I think I played the first two. And I really so I liked the concept. I've always thought that it would make a very good movie concept if they did it right. There's a lot of
Yeah.
interactiveness in the game that is phenomenal, and I always thought it would translate to a screen very well. I did not expect it to be a fully featured release in theaters. I was expecting it to end up being like a direct to a streaming service game or movie rather.
Yeah.
You know, I expected it to show up on Netflix or it to show up on who else is just giving ungodly amounts of money to people to make stuff lately? Netflix is doing it.
Apple,
Um,
sort of.
oh, Apple, yeah, but Apple's sticking more to the to like television shows type stuff.
Yeah, I'm not keeping up on what Apple's doing.
Although Apple just lost Jon Stewart.
Yeah, good job, Apple.
Good job, Jon Stewart. Apple went to Jon Stewart and
Yeah,
told him that he needed to change his
mine was pure
content
sarcasm.
to align with Apple and Chinese government. And John told him goodbye.
It's like, oh, is that so?
It's like,
Peace.
fine, have a nice day.
I'm gonna align myself right out the door.
Right? I mean, kudos to Jon Stewart for just giving that up instantly and saying nope.
Yeah, can we vote him in for president?
Yeah, I would
Right.
like to, because that's eventually what's going to end up happening is that we've got to elect someone that doesn't fucking want to be president. the only way. I think it was Douglas Adams that said that.
Chris Thurber for president 2028.
Was it? I think it was Douglas Adams that said that what it takes to become president should automatically disqualify anyone from obtaining it.
That sounds about right.
It's one of those the only way to do it to where you would have anyone with any sort of credibility or any hope of ethics by the time that they're in is someone that didn't want to run in the first place.
Yeah.
Because the moment you want the job, that's when you fucked up.
Yeah. Speaking of fucked up.
Yeah.
We fucked up the intro. Where are you at, Dave?
You can find me online at Open Darkwing, and opendarkwing.com is sort of open for business.
Sort of open for business. We're waiting
We're
on
still tweaking it.
We're still tweaking it. There's a WordPress update coming out at the beginning of November where we'll do a revamp based around the new update.
Yeah.
You can find me at briankeesbury.com, where you can see how disconnected my brain is from reality still. I have 3 more weeks until my, what's my shit called? Lexapro? My shit's called fucked. Fucked up shit, Dave.
I'm on that Lexapro.
Oh no, Lexapro.
That was a TikTok song, wasn't it?
Oh fuck, I don't know. I quit the TikTok.
You quit the TikTok?
Yep.
You're no longer TikToking?
Scorched earthing all of my social medias. I downloaded all of the stuff, burning them all to the ground, Dave. Putting everything on my.
Are you switching to dedicated
BrianKeesbury.com.
federated media that doesn't work half the time?
Oh, it's working. I'm just building it little pieces at a time, so I make sure I get all the pieces right. So it's federated currently. I think we figured out some of the issues was media types, and some apps support some media types and some don't. So like when I posted as a WebM, the one thing didn't recognize it, but when I posted as an MP4, it kind of broke, which was weird. So I don't understand how that worked.
It's my ongoing love-hate relationship with a lot of, and I'm not saying all of them are like this, but a lot of open source software and open source culture and this comes mostly in the form of like Linux for desktop, software or operating system replacement stuff. And the best part about open source software is that it's so wide open and there are so many choices and so many ways to do a single task that you can kind of curate everything for yourself, right? And kind of tailor it. The worst part about it is that it's so fragmented and open and there's so many things that can do a complete task that it can cause problems. And actually it's starting to cause some massive security problems because, and this, I came across this in an article and I can't remember where it is and I couldn't find it again. Maybe I'll find it later and I'll post it somewhere, but they were talking about that we're running into, especially in online software side, online software and packages. And I don't think WordPress has run into this because of how big they've become, but a lot of projects and software that are being built off of open source software, which is great and everything else, but they're running into a problem that dependencies are becoming outdated because they're not being maintained properly.
Yeah.
And so these dependencies are starting to introduce in security problems because they're either out of date, outdated, and no one downstream of them knows how to fix the problems that are coming in. And
Word
so any upstream software is running into problems with having reliance on downstream out of date dependencies.
WordPress runs into it because of users installing plugins to make extra things work, and then the plugins don't get updated. So you have to.
Yep.
So they've had a couple of like security breaches like in the last few months because of older plugins that haven't been updated. Where it's
And
like,
that's why I'm being extraordinarily cautious on
mm-hmm,
what plugins, what themes, what anything else that I want to use, and why I was like, we can make this work instead of finding something in some tiny corner of the internet somewhere that would work better, because I don't necessarily fully trust it.
yeah, that's
I
why
don't
I'm
have the
using.
programming. I could probably dig through and find out, but I don't have the security side programming to understand if something is good or something isn't. Because just because it's open source, which means anyone can make changes, doesn't mean that those that are making changes always have the best interests of everyone in mind.
That's why I'm using core WordPress and then using the activity pub features that they're building into core WordPress. And it's just, I'm just enabling things slowly as they come along with those.
Yeah, because I'm sure we could probably do a lot more, especially the federated side, pretty quickly by using some crazy third party stuff.
Yeah.
But there's inherent problems, or there can be inherent problems introduced in when relying on third party shit.
Yeah. And it started as a third party plugin, but then they looked at it and said, "Hey, this is actually going to be handy. This will be the future of the internet." Like
Yeah.
having these blogs interconnected like this, like you're doing. And they reached out to the guy and they said, "Hey, do you want to work for us? Do you want to become part of this?" And the dude was like, "Actually, yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
that."
Having it built into core is good. Um, but there's so many wonky vulnerabilities that come in is that you can manipulate, especially stuff in CSS that you can manipulate to get through security shit. And having
Yeah,
some crazy third party, even a third party theme that doesn't keep that fully in mind can open up your site for all sorts of problems.
oh yeah, because especially when you start installing themes and then it's like, "Oh, we need this plugin to make these elements in this theme work, and then we need this other plugin to make this elements in this plugin for this theme to work." And then we need you to pay for this theme and this plugin. And then you have payment elements going in just because you wanted your site to look a certain way.
Yep.
And everything becomes a little bit less secure. Whereas what we're doing with your site is we're using the core theme and we're just skinning it
We're
and
we're
use
we're adapting the elements that are built into the theme to make it look the way we want it to. And
yeah,
even then there's compromise that we're doing or that I'm doing because it's better for security deeper down than for the things. And the other plugins that we're plugging into it are built either by WordPress or by the group that we are trying to connect to so that we can ensure that it's not going to end up being some wonky hack workaround.
yeah. We're
Hacky
only
workarounds is not the way to go when you're dealing with production anything.
yeah, we're only using tools that I've put a lot of research into and found
The
to
only
be
the only one
trusted.
we'll eventually add that we haven't put as much research in, but because of where it comes from, I trust it, will be the integration into Patreon.
Well, yeah, but they
But that's being
they have a
released.
long history of
That's
being somewhat trustworthy.
yes,
Even though
because it's
even
being
though they're like,
released by Patreon.
Yeah.
So it's the
It's a
Patreon team
dedicated.
that's doing it, and it's not some third party workaround. It's first party. So I guess it would be technically second party off from WordPress.
Yeah.
Because I guess the Patreon, a WordPress plugin by Patreon for Connect to Patreon would be second party.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
first
So
party
it's
would be WordPress, second party would be Patreon, third
Patreon.
party would be someone else making the bridge connection.
That would be like Chris and Steve and James cobbling together whatever's would work for us.
We had an old friend, I'll just use his initials BP. He was the king of third party hackery
Yeah, that's what I.
and wondered why his stuff was always broken, why it wasn't working the way he wanted it to. And it was just because it will work doesn't mean that it should. And I'm not saying should as in it does or doesn't. It should or shouldn't as in this is a really fucking bad idea. You shouldn't do that. Shouldn't work.
That's how my vehicles work.
Yeah. It's
Why
one of the
is
reasons why I have almost stubbornly refused to learn how to do anything with my cars.
yeah?
Because I would fall very quickly into it seems to work mentality way too quickly, and I'm not going to do that with my vehicles.
No, I have the knowledge and the tools. I went to school to do automotive work,
Yeah.
and I got the degree. I've got certifications. I've got the knowledge. I have the tools. Like I've got a full toolbox full of stuff. There's so much differences now compared to when I learned.
Yeah. Well, and the
And
other thing that I've learned when it comes to vehicles or other expensive things is while it may cost a little bit more to take it somewhere, taking it somewhere where they have some sort of a warranty system where they back their work
yeah,
can become very invaluable.
and the specialty tools.
Yeah.
Like there's special tools for certain parts that like even being in the industry for as long as I was and knowing as much as I do, there's specialty tools where I don't know the names of them. I've never seen them, but you get into a book and all it is it'll be like you need specialty tool number XD34752, and I'm like, what in the fuck even is that? And I have to go Google that, and it shows some ridiculous monstrosity of a thing. I'm like,
And then
I don't know
with
what
an
the hell
equal
that
number
does.
of monstrosity price tag attached to it for a one-time use.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like when you get to that point, you're like, okay, this has got to go to a dealer.
Well, and we kind of ran into that a little bit when we were trying to troubleshoot my car a couple months back, because I had the check engine light came on and we ran the codes and we're like, okay, well, this code isn't very specific. It's quite generic. It could be as simple as cleaning the gasket off the gas cap, or it could be this little part that we couldn't even find because you had to disassemble half the goddamn engine to get to it. I mean, thankfully, we cleaned the gaskets out on the gas cap
Yeah.
and screwed it back in, and then it kept showing the code, but it became a historical code, not an active code. And then 2 days later it just turned itself off.
Yeah.
So we figured that takes about 2 days to get out of the ECU system.
Yeah. Which was semi expected, but still like,
I think it was longer than either of us expected it to be. I think we expected it to be 4 or 5 startups and it would be out, not 2 days worth of stuff.
yeah. Which is, and that could have been a specific thing to your brand and because each different manufacturer has their own computer system. They're all supposed to be like somewhat standardized, but they all still have like their own specific things,
Yeah.
which is kind of like how the image editing stuff works too. Like,
Oh God.
comparing like what you do in Adobe compared to what I do in GIMP, like the tools are all the same. Like when I was watching you do that logo thing, I was like, oh yeah, that tool works the same. That tool works the same.
Yep.
And then
Well,
you're going to export it, and I'm like, wait a minute, why don't you have this export option? Why do I have more export options in GIMP than you have in Adobe? Like your program costs you like $600 a year. My program was free. Why do I have more export options than you do?
yeah.
But you have more tools than I do.
And that's kind of that give and take. And that goes back to where I was talking about earlier about the whole open source stuff, is that because they're available, someone thought this would be good to have in, and so they added it and submitted the software update.
Yeah.
And
I don't have like the AI background removal stuff like you do. So removing a background takes me, 2 hours, whereas it took you all of 5 minutes.
yeah, and that was for all 8 images.
Yeah. Whereas it would have taken me an hour or more per image.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's a give and take on the process there, like, we were talking about the web P the other day and figuring out images to get up on the web and everything. And so
Yeah.
we found out that Adobe doesn't support WebP export at all. Affinity Photo does, but Adobe does not.
Yeah, which is
And
stupid.
so trying to
WebP's been around
navigate,
for more than a decade now.
yeah. And then, we were just talking about just recently, and I even forgot what
AVIF,
yeah,
AVIF.
AVIF, and doing some digging as to why why it's available in certain places, because I think you said in GIMP you could export as AVIF.
Yeah.
I cannot in either Adobe or Affinity.
Yeah.
And it's simply because there are still some browsers that don't recognize it.
Yeah.
And so, but that one makes a little bit more sense because while the codec may be a little older, it hasn't really come to the forefront of people thinking about it until more recently. And um it will gain, I'm sure, more popularity, just like AV1 for video will probably has been gaining more popularity even though it's been around for a while now.
Yeah.
It's just, it takes a while for everyone to kind of get on board in the software thing, especially in a world right now where if Google's behind it, there's a lot of companies that don't want to touch it because they don't want they don't want the appearance of having the stank, if you will, of Google on their stuff. Microsoft ran into that in the mid to late 90s when the antitrust stuff started really popping up around Microsoft.
Yeah.
No one wanted the stink of the thought of impropriety that was stemming from the antitrust stuff. And right now, Google's running through a lot of that antitrust stuff, especially in the EU. And so there's
Yeah.
a lot of companies that, while they may use, like Edge, for example, is built off of Chromium, it doesn't have or hold all of the same um a lot of the same code base or capabilities because they've changed it to replace IE, which was very deeply integrated into Windows. And so now we have issues where that's deeply integrated into Windows, which means Edge is kind of replacing it, which means it's kind of interweaving in and replacing IE, but it doesn't have a lot of the the eventual antitrust possibility problems that are stemming from Google and some of their lawsuits in the EU. So it becomes this kind of jumbled mess. And so when Google digs deep into something like they have with AV1, with AVIX or other things that they're really spearheading, there's a lot of pushback from other companies because they don't want to get caught in even the appearance of an impropriety system where they'll end up getting called in on a stupid lawsuit
Yeah.
or get dependent on something and suddenly have Google just completely slam the door shut on it, because that's a real problem right now too. You get dependent on something that Google is backing, and one day they just decide, oh, we're done with this. Have a nice day. It's going to the graveyard. And that's starting to get really goddamn annoying.
I think they need to. Well, it is all still open source.
But we track back to what I said earlier, is who's going to end up maintaining it. If
Yeah.
Google's been maintaining it and it's open source, awesome. Suddenly the maintainer abandons the project. Who's going to maintain it?
Yeah.
Because you just can't let it go and just let it falter, because that introduces all sorts of funky problems.
Yeah.
Maintaining open source software is such a thankless, horrible job, but it is imperative that it maintains and is happy with it. But if a company is paying a team of people to maintain something and they shut that down, suddenly the maintainers are all gone. Who's going to step up and either do a full-time maintenance job for free, or who's going to pay for it? We don't have all that many altruistic billionaires out there anymore. We have a handful of them, but most of them are getting out of the software side and are doing more like what Gates is doing.
Yeah.
Although I did
That's
find out why the Gates Foundation dumped so much money into Khan Academy.
why.
Because Gates's kids were using Khan Academy to help pass their math classes, and it was such a huge improvement over their scores that they dug up to find out who the guy behind it was, and ended up like donating, I think it was a little over like $5.5 million to the project,
I remember reading something about that.
because it helped the Gates kids,
Yeah.
which is fucking hilariously awesome.
Yeah.
That's what you do with billions. You help people who are helping lots of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. You find the tools that are helping and you support them.
Yep. Yeah, you don't just buy out the tool, you enable the people who are doing the tool, and it obviously it helps when it's a foundation, a nonprofit foundation like the Khan Academy. But it's just, yeah, the whole story behind the Khan Academy is crazy awesome. He's got all
Mhm.
100% of his big funding lead up to get completely off the ground came because he was doing like YouTube stuff in his closet to help people out, and it ended up helping, I think it was like the first venture capital chick, it was like her nieces or nephews or something had found it and used it, and she heard them talking about it, so she had a meeting with them, gave them 100 grand to start with, and like just to kind of to help give him some breathing room, because he was burning through savings trying to support his family while doing it and trying to get this thing up off the ground.
Yeah.
But he had been struggling for like a year before that happened. And then she texted him back again later and was like, hey, I just heard Bill Gates talking about this. So she set up a meeting between Gates and him, and it just kind of went completely bonkers. And then because of the popularity and Gates's request and other people, Google ended up giving them a couple of million to help out part of their education foundation stuff, which they do some really cool stuff with their foundations.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to think that I was just completely bashing all over Google a minute ago, but they're not exactly the most reliable software people at the moment.
Oh,
You know, I'm still waiting for the day that they completely just abandon the Android project for something else
oh,
and leave all of
that's a
the Android users out high and dry.
that's a big money maker for him right now.
I mean, I'm curious to see what's going to happen after to find out what happens with with the antitrust stuff, because they may either have to choose between search or Android. And I guarantee you Android will go before search will.
Yeah.
And then what? That's the scary part is the and then what?
I don't know, because search is big money too. I, I think they're gonna try and split them up. Is gonna be the thing, which is why they made it into Alphabet rather than the um
Because I know that, and this is this is what I'm really worried about, is that because of contracts with having Google being the default search engine for Android, you know, and that's a deal with the device manufacturers or whatever, Google subsidizes a lot of stuff in order to do that. If they
mhm,
can't subsidize that anymore, that's billions that these makers are no longer receiving. So they're going to have to, because the margins are so razor thin on device manufacturing, we're going to see a massive uptick in cost of devices from Android.
yeah.
And as much as we mock the cost of Apple devices in the market, or and at least in the mobile marketplace, they're pretty competitive. But if every device manufacturer that runs Android is raising their prices by even 50 or $100, Apple's suddenly going to be the cheapest stuff on the market pretty quickly, because they are starting to really kind of push more with their SE lines and stuff like that, which is kind of their more mid-range lines. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if this thing splits up and what's going to happen to some of those costs. And I only use that one because I know that's one of the things at the heart of the antitrust in the EU is the default Google engine for searching.
Yeah. Yep.
The other half of the problem with that is that even in a vacuum, I don't think there's another search engine out there that does a better job.
No.
I mean, DuckDuckGo is halfway okay, but it is a decade or more behind Google. Bing is a little bit better than that, but they're still terrible. I don't know who would even come close to being able to provide a good, reliable search platform right now.
Bing.
Yeah, I think they're the closest.
Yeah.
And they're still 5 years behind.
Yep.
Easy. I mean, they couldn't get people to use Bing when they were paying people to,
Yeah.
which I think the reward program is still active.
Yeah. You can
I haven't
still get
checked lately, but
rewards.
you get points for using Bing to search And then you can apply like any other rewards program from like a gas station where you get so many points and you can get things like gift cards. Like it's not trivial what they're trying to give
you
away to pay people to use Bing, and people still won't do it because it's still not good enough.
you can get like Xbox point reward things, so you can get like Xbox games, or you get the Xbox Live stuff too.
Like there's crazy amount of shit you can get with these stupid rewards, but it's still so bad that people won't switch when you pay them.
Yeah.
It's insane.
See, and that's part of why I think a lot of the antitrust stuff is just kind of stupid, because it's like, um, what, you,
The idea behind it was to prevent someone from becoming a monopoly. I get
yeah,
that. Where you get so big that you pretty much just buy out or pay out your entire competition and you don't let anyone compete. What I find frustrating is that's turned into, if you do something and you do it well, we're going to punish you for it.
yeah. It's like if Meyer or Kroger were suing Walmart because w- way more people shop at Walmart than they do at Kroger or Meyer.
Yep.
That's kind of what the situation feels like.
It's like we want to support mom and pop shops, but be careful that you don't become too good at what you do, because if you do what you do better than everyone else, we're going to sue you in oblivion to make sure you can't do it anymore. Like I don't I find the people that run Amazon and how they run business to be absolutely atrocious. However, to sit here and say that they shouldn't exist because Bezos took selling books out of his garage and built a goddamn empire. Yes, he did it on the back of everyone that he exploited, but to say that that's an antitrust against any other company, he just he just created something that got big and got successful. He
Yeah.
didn't do it ethically, but
It's
there's nothing illegal about unethics, about bad ethics, or about being a shitty human being. There's nothing, if we're going to go the route of legislating ethics, I'm all for that. Let's do that then. Don't try to hide behind an anti-monopoly shit when they're not buying out Walmart, they're not buying out Kmart or Kroger or any 100 other places. They built a marketplace that's easier to access. They took that money and they built warehouses fucking everywhere so that they could get shit to people really fucking fast.
yeah.
That's what they did. They figured out the logistics game with playing the cheap import game, and they built an empire by doing it faster and better than anyone else before them had.
Yep. The same thing that Google
Ethics
did.
aside of how they fucking treat their people, because I think they're absolute horrible trash humans for doing that.
Oh yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the legalities and not the ethics.
Yeah, what Google is doing is not illegal. They're just really fucking good at what they do. So much so that they they were so good at what they did that their name became part of the lexicon
Yep.
for searching.
And that's not a monopoly or an antitrust issue. That's they managed to do search better than anyone else has ever done it or ever dreamed of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And
They didn't create search. There was
nope.
searches before that. There was Ask Jeeves and Yahoo. Like Yahoo's still a
Excite.
thing. It's just It's just trash. Bing is just trash.
Yep.
DuckDuckGo is just trash. There's other options there. You can use them.
I think Ask Jeeves is still around.
Is it? I wouldn't know because Google works so fucking good. I don't need to use it.
Yeah, Ask Jeeves got bought out by Ask.com. Ask.com is still a website.
What's ask.com? I wouldn't know because I just Google things because it works so fucking good.
Lycos, remember Lycos search engine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's still around.
Excite, AOL had a search thing. None of them worked good. Google worked good, and that's why it got so big. And then their ads worked great.
Excite is still a web search engine.
Is it?
Yep, I just went to it.
Oh.
They even have an email subsystem. You can get an Excite email address.
Oh, that's exciting.
Speaking of old email, is this still around?
That's not exciting, Dave. I lied. That was a lie.
Oh my God. Do you know what is still around?
What?
Juno dial-up services. You remember Juno.com?
Dave, you laugh.
Dial-up services and email?
Dave, time out. Okay, you're laughing, but I essentially had dial-up when we first moved here, right?
Sign into your email. Juno email still exists.
Oh boy.
I know AOL still exists.
Yeah.
They got rid of Instant Messenger, but as a search engine and as AOL email still exists.
Does ICQ is that right? Does that still exist?
I wonder. I don't know. ICQ chat. ICQ stay connected. It still exists.
Cool.
Yep. And the logo is still the same stupid fucking flower with every petal being a different shape.
Hells yeah. Hells yeah.
Yeah, I mean, none of this stuff went anywhere. Someone else did it better. Someone else did it in a way that cut through bullshit. They did it better and they did it faster and they did it more consistently. None of these companies got bought out by one company and integrated all of their innovations into one. Google search and Google ads now I could understand people getting upset with their ad network being integrated in and not giving other ad networks a shot. But on the flip side of that token, if Honda is making batteries and they decide to use their batteries in their cars, is that an antitrust thing? Is it antitrust for Samsung phones to use Samsung LCDs and OLEDs? Is it antitrust for LG to use LG LED or OLEDs or screens in their devices?
Yeah, see, that's the other thing I say. It's like you aren't going to go sue Walmart because they aren't advertising Meyer products. You know, you aren't going to go sue Walmart because they aren't advertising Kroger's signature brand,
Brian.
you know.
Yeah. And so I think the antitrust system, I think there needs to be new laws, but we need to make these laws to keep them up to date with what's going on instead of trying to create new shit. The fact that the internet still relies on the same Copyright Act that was there in what is it? The Copyright Act of 1993, I think it is. The fact that we're still using that to deal with copyright issues online is absolutely bonkers insane.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a real big problem with people stealing shit online and reusing it in the wrong ways. But the fact that we have to rely on antiquated laws instead of updating the laws, we're trying to twist out with something that wasn't designed to deal with the problems is stupid.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be leaning on precedents for something that has no precedence with what the original was even dreamed of when it was written.
We need new tools in Congress.
Yeah, well, they finally got together and decided that they finally picked a speaker yesterday. And then come to find out the fucking person they chose was like worse than the people they were rejecting. But because he doesn't have a whole bunch of long time baggage to the name, they seem to be okay with it all of a sudden.
Oh, that figures.
So the moderate quote, and I'm going to say this quote, moderate Republicans, because I no longer believe there is such a thing in Congress, that did not like Jim Jordan because of how outspoken he was about all this other stuff. And they were all hand wringing and we can't have him and all this stuff. They elect unanimously on the Republican side, which good for them. They finally got their act together and decided they wanted to pick somebody. But they picked the person that drafted the amicus briefs to the Supreme Court when Texas was trying to sue other states to have their results thrown out from the election because it disenfranchised their voters and who they voted for. So Texas was angry that Pennsylvania voted in Biden or whatever. And so they tried to sue to have Pennsylvania's election results thrown out because it was going to disenfranchise Texas voters from having the person they elected.
Can we give
win.
Texas back to Mexico already?
They weren't the only ones to do it, but the person that came up with that asinine strategy
No, Texas
is now
Texas wasn't
second
ours.
in line to be the goddamn president.
I don't want him anymore. We give him back. Third in line. He's third in line.
Nope, he's second in line. First in line is the vice president. Second in line is the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, I understand.
I understand there's the common thought process nomenclature of third in line, but technically he's second in line, and president of the Senate is third in line.
Well, he won't last as long as a head of lettuce, probably. So
he was just unanimously voted in by frickin' the ruling party in the House. Oh, and here's a fun thought process. So he was also one of the architect leaders of trying to decertify the Electoral College in the House of Representatives, right? So here's this for a fun fact. One of the only ways that a election can be certified, it has to be certified by the House, right?
Okay.
If it's not certified by the House and we don't have a certified winner of the election, and then when the time expires for the old president's term to end, it just kind of goes into limbo, and the Speaker of the House is interim president until the House certifies a president. So voting becomes very, very important when it comes to Congress next term, because if these people who do not believe, let's say it's between Trump and Biden again, right? If Biden wins again and these people are still in charge of the House, we don't vote in and vote them out of the majority, there is a technical loophole that hasn't really been played with yet, and it would end up going into the courts forever, to where if the House doesn't certify, then the term of the former president expires. The Speaker of the House, who's refusing to certify, becomes interim president until the House decides to certify.
I hate our system.
How's that for some irony?
I hate our system.
Because we rely on an incomplete system because the people that wrote it never imagined that there would be people in charge who were such bad faith actors. There was a reasonable expectation that the people who were in charge of things would be ethical, moral, and would be acting in good faith for the country and not acting in a way to try to circumvent the system itself. But that's what we have right now. We have a group in charge that are trying to actively circumvent the system. We're going to be going down into another shutdown in less than a month. And we just spent 3 weeks without a speaker, which means we couldn't be working on negotiating a continuing resolution or a budget. We just spent 3 weeks trying to watch the Republicans implode, trying to get their act together. They finally get behind someone. We're less than a month away from shutting the government down again. And what is the first act of business that they decide to do with their new, now completed power? They dismissed themselves for a week. They took a week vacation less than a month from shutting the government down.
Good job.
They're just not going to show up. They're done until next week.
I hate our system.
This is what that, and I am going to be very, very harsh against the Republican Party right now. I believe that the Republican Party of old is important. I believe in a conservative party. I don't like them. I don't agree with them, but I believe there is a need for it. But when you are nothing but obstructionist and when you run on a basis that the system doesn't work, and so your first act is to shut down the system as proof that it doesn't work, and you're actively sabotaging a system in order to show proof that it's broken after breaking it, you don't deserve to be a ruling party anymore. And that is what this group is. They are just chaos.
Yeah.
And their entire plan is to sow as much chaos as possible so that they can point to Washington and say, see what happens with chaos. And before people start going, well, both sides are the same, to give credit where credit is due, Nancy Pelosi had less of a majority in her last run-up than what the Republicans have now, and managed to pass a whole bunch of really important stuff, including the PACT Act, which is what expanded healthcare for veterans. And like there was a lot of stuff with infrastructure, with the PACT Act, with the Inflation Reduction Act, which worked. Like there was a lot of stuff they passed with a lot less majority. And when they were in charge, shit was getting passed and shit was getting done. The entirety of the Republican, they've been in power for all of this year so far, because they became empowered in early January. And the only thing they've managed to do is stave off they've passed a continuing resolution, which then they ended up firing their speaker for working with Democrats to do so, even though the other house is run by Democrats and so is the White House. And they've managed to hold impeachment hearings for Biden that their own witnesses came in and said that they don't have any actual firsthand facts that the president did anything wrong. And the biggest smoking gun that they have is that Biden paid off his brother's loans when Biden was a private citizen in between the time that he was vice president and president. That's the worst thing they've come up with other than his kid.
Yeah.
And they haven't even managed to make any connections between anything that Hunter Biden did and the president, other than some emails that they had to, not emails, text messages that they had to delete a bunch of other information that explained what they were talking about in those text messages, and then retake only snippets to put them in new bubbles to manufacture evidence to apply out to propose as their smoking gun evidence. That's what they managed to do with when they were in charge. It's unfucking believable how much of a shit show it was. I was looking forward to them getting busy on certain things, and they didn't. I thought there were some good ideas that might come out of it, but there isn't.
Yeah. Nothing.
It's been a shit show. And I'm sorry for getting so political, but both sides are not the same anymore. You have one side that's trying to get shit accomplished, and you have one side that's working so hard to stop it. There's one side, there's a reason why my GI Bill no longer is for my entire lifetime. It has a expiration date, and it's only for a certain number of months that will not cover an entire degree anymore. Most people don't realize that. I am restricted on how many classes I can take or how little classes I can take, and it's only good for 36 months total.
Yeah.
But they don't allow enough hours in that 36 months to get a 48-month degree. They only allow 3 years into it for a degree now. And that was, and I almost quote verbatim, because these are handouts that we can no longer afford. That's one side. Both sides are not the same anymore. They just aren't.
And trying to get VA stuff.
For the first time, I've been a veteran for 15 years now, which means I've been out of active duty service for about 15 years. No. Yeah, close to 15 years now. 12, 14. Anyway, close to 15 years. Only because of the PACT Act am I eligible for health care if I need it. I wasn't before.
Yeah.
And you would think that that kind of an increase would be awesome, except that it was the Democrats that passed it. When the Democrats put forward a bill, there was no other writers, there were no amendments. It was a clean bill, and it was intentionally there to support vouchers for food and housing to homeless veterans. That seems like something everyone can get aboard, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know who 100% voted against it? It was an entire party voted against it. And do you know which party it was? It wasn't the Democrats. It was voted against. They were all seemed to be on board until Biden got excited about the prospect of it. And suddenly every one of them, including the 9 Republican co-sponsors of the bill, voted against it. Because it was more important to obstruct than it would be to help veterans who are homeless get food or get housing. Both sides are not the same anymore. And I'm off my soapbox now. Fucking vote, people. God damn, I get so pissed off. Yeah. Sorry. What were we talking about? Tools?
Tools.
You had to make the joke about tools in Congress, didn't you?
Dave, I didn't mean to.
You had to set me off. God damn it.
Seems like it's been a while since I've done a joke, and then
it turned into something else that you did not expect, and you were like, oh, will he just shut up already?
Yeah. I was just like, oh boy, okay, here we go. Dave's got to do his thing.
Yeah, sorry.
Dave's got a Dave.
I'm not wrong, though.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
Don't forget to vote.
Yeah, there's local elections for stuff like mayor, city council, that kind of stuff's coming up. Those elections are more important than people think or realize.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when it comes down to like city districts, you know, there can sometimes only be a few hundred people in a city district. And so every one of those votes is insanely important. Please vote.
Vote at your school board.
Yep. School board, mayor. Those are the things that affect your day-to-day lives more than anything else. So go vote.
Yep.
And I don't care. And even if you are a fiscal conservative, or you're the hardest leftist Democrat, or a Green Party, or somewhere in between, just go make sure your voice is heard. It's if we don't use it, we're going to end up losing it one of these days. And apathy is going to be the reason. So please go vote.
Go vote, for fuck's sake. Go vote so Dave will shut the fuck up.
Yeah, something like that.
And we can have a good episode where I don't get yelled at.
I wasn't yelling at you. I was just yelling into the ether.
Yeah.
You just had to make the joke that set me off. That's all.
Yeah. So
anyway, till next week, guys.
We can have a calm, peaceful episode where there's no.
I haven't gone off in a while.
I know.
It's been a couple months. It was due to happen at some point.
Go vote so Dave can calm down.
Go vote so I don't have a heart attack and an aneurysm.
Yeah. Dave's on the verge. You need a blood pressure medication. Go get a blood pressure medication, Dave.
My blood pressure and cholesterol are fine. Thank you very much.
Are they? My cholesterol's fine, but I am on a blood pressure medication because my brain has a melty hole in it. So.
No, apparently I might be a massive fat fuck, but apparently I'm fairly healthy. So
yeah,
I'm doing something good.
Yeah, apparently my cholesterol and my diabetes, my diabetes is okay. Apparently my prostatitis is okay. Or whatever he called it. I did a bunch of blood work. Went to the doctor. Actually went to a nurse practitioner. The dude was pretty nice.
Oh, cool.
And had to turn my head and cough. And he was like, oh, feels all good. And I was like, oh, huh. You single?
You're like, really? You said it feels good, huh? You want my number?
Yeah. Well, he already had my number. I'm like, huh. Hey, how you doing, bud? Sorry, I didn't trim up. I didn't know we were getting this personal. I'll do it. What are you doing for dinner?
Next week, we will definitely be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
Yes.
which might spawn into a really interesting thought process that I just thought of that I'm going to pitch to Brian when I'm done, but I figured I'll just say it out loud now. That way we
Yeah.
guarantee that we'll have to do it at some point.
We will weigh our diapers before and after so we know who was more scared.
But I think talking about the history, a little bit of the history of the absolute horror show that is turning video games into movies and the status of that would be a fun topic to kind of dive into at some point.
Oh yeah, because I've kind of avoided that. I watched the I guess we could talk about that next week.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Until then, guys, have a great week.
Love you all.